There are some stories that don't begin with grand declarations or dramatic moments. Instead, they start quietly, like a soft melody that slowly grows into something unforgettable. The story of Barış Arduç and Elçin Sangu feels exactly like that kind of beginning. It was a calm morning on set. The kind where everything seems ordinary, yet something unseen is about to shift. Barış arrived early, as he often did, carrying that composed presence people around him had come to respect. He wasn't someone who spoke too much, but when he did, his words carried weight. There was a quiet confidence about him, something grounded and steady. Elçin, on the other hand, walked in with a natural brightness. Her energy filled the space without effort. She greeted people warmly, her smile genuine, never forced. There was something about her that made others feel comfortable almost instantly. Their first interaction was simple. No dramatic pause, no cinematic moment. Just a polite greeting, a brief exchange of words. But even in that simplicity, there was something different. Something that neither of them could quite explain. As the day went on, they found themselves working closely. Scene after scene, conversation after conversation. First, everything stayed professional. They focused on their roles, their lines, their timing. But slowly, almost without noticing, something began to change. It started with the small things. A shared laugh that lasted just a little longer than expected. A moment of eye contact that felt a bit deeper than usual. A silence that didn't feel awkward but rather comfortable. Barış noticed it first, though he didn't say anything. He found himself paying attention to the way Elçin reacted to things. The way her eyes lit up when she laughed. The way she listened carefully when someone spoke. There was a sincerity in her that felt rare. Elçin too began to notice things about Barış. His calm nature. The way he stayed focused yet never distant. The quiet kindness in his actions. He wasn't trying to impress anyone, and maybe that was what made him stand out the most. Days turned into weeks. Their conversations grew longer. What started as work-related discussions slowly turned into something more personal. They talked about their experiences, their dreams, the paths that had brought them here. There was no rush, no pressure. Just a natural flow. Like two people gradually discovering a connection they didn't expect. One evening, after a long day of filming, the set had grown quiet. Most of the crew had left, and the usual noise had faded into a peaceful stillness. Elçin sat nearby, going over her lines, though her focus wasn't entirely there. Barış noticed. "You've read that page at least 5 times, he said softly. She looked up, slightly surprised, then smiled. "Maybe I'm just trying to get it perfect." He shook his head gently. "Or maybe your mind is somewhere else." There was a brief pause. "Maybe," she admitted. It was one of those moments where words could have taken many directions. But neither of them rushed it. They sat in that quiet space, understanding more than what was being said. That was the moment something shifted. Not loudly, not dramatically, just clearly. From that day on, there was a different kind of comfort between them. A familiarity that didn't need explanation. They didn't label it, didn't question it. They simply allowed it to exist. The energy between them wasn't something that could be easily described. It wasn't intense in a way that demanded attention. It was steady, real. The kind of connection that grows quietly but deeply. On set, people began to notice. Not in obvious ways but in small details. The way they naturally stood closer. The way their conversations flowed without effort. The way they supported each other. Even in the simplest moments. But what made it special was that it never felt forced. There was no need to perform or prove anything. It was just there. One afternoon during a break, they found themselves sitting together outside. The sun was soft, the air calm. It was one of those rare moments where everything slows down. "Do you ever feel like some moments don't need to be explained?" Elçin asked. Barış looked at her, thoughtful. "Yes. I think those are the most real ones." She nodded slightly, as if she had been waiting for that answer. That was the thing about them. They didn't rush to define what they were feeling. They didn't try to turn it into something bigger than it was. They simply experienced it one moment at a time. And maybe that's what made it feel so real. Because it wasn't built on expectations or pressure. It was built on understanding. On presence. On the quiet realization that sometimes, the most meaningful connections don't need to be announced. They just grow. Slowly. Naturally. And beautifully. As the days continued, neither of them knew exactly where this path would lead. But for the first time in a long time, that uncertainty didn't feel uncomfortable. Felt right, because whatever this was, it wasn't something temporary. It was something genuine, something steady, something real. And sometimes that's how the most unforgettable stories begin.